Hello, and welcome to the Revizto webinar, Equipment Installation Tracking. I'm John Saint, and I'm the Customer Success Manager, or one of the Customer Success Managers for Northern Europe and the UK. We'll be running through a few of the new features within Revizto 5.14, seeing how we progressed from 5.13, to talk about how we can use custom statuses and QR codes to track equipment all the way through from manufacture to installation. Before we get into the demonstration of the product, I want to run through some of the updates that coincide with what I'm going to show you. First off is custom statuses or custom workflows. You can see from 5.3 on the left of the screen, we used to have a very rigid structure there. Issues would go down a standard workflow where they would go to open, in progress, solved, and closed. We got a lot of feedback from our customers to expand on this, and we did that by just opening this up for customization for any project or any super user for a project. If we look at 5.14 there, you can see installation and RFI as good examples. Installation is now the type, so it's no longer a standard workflow, and within that installation type, we've got those different statuses within there. So DNS frozen, procured, delivered, installed, commissioned, handed over. And there's no real limitation to this. You can add as many of these as you like. You might do some for observations, some for clash tests. They might go through different workflows, but we opened this up so you can really play around and customize it yourself. To gain access to the custom workflows, we first have to access the workspace. You can see in the image on the left, there's a brand new tab available to you, Issue Workflows. By accessing the right license and also the correct project, you can start customizing your own workflows within that Issue Workflows tab. This can also be accessed via the desktop, but this can only be used to apply types to the existing stamps that you have. At default, the stamps will be with that standard workflow that we discussed earlier. QR codes are another addition to 5.14. Now within Revizto, you can export and create QR codes for specific elements or also items within the issue tracker. You can see from the slide here that there's different types of QR codes you can generate. We could just do an A4 sheet or a sticker. We can then choose whether we want to focus on object or inside a room. We get to customize what is seen when that QR code is scanned. For this example that we're showing, we can export these QR codes once the design is frozen, once the manufacturer has been complete, and apply them to that piece of equipment that we're tracking. For anyone that loves a workflow or a work map or whatever you may call it, we've put this workflow example together. Here, we'll start at the top. We got create custom workflow for equipment tracking, and that's what we would go into the workspace and create that custom workflow with that custom type so we could track it as I showed you in that example. Then we would generate a QR code for the design equipment. Again, we're going to run through this all in the product itself, but we can select all the individual pieces of equipment via the data or via just a selection, and we can generate QR codes off the back of that. We can then print the QR codes upon procurement, add the QR codes to equipment in the factory when it's complete, when it's done manufacturing, and then we could use the site app within our phones to scan that QR code to update the status to manufactured. Once it's been delivered on site, update the status again to delivered, then it's been installed, and we can update the status to installed. Once we've done so, we can verify that information by securing the QR code on site, run through, do some snagging, use the AR to review the accuracy of the model. Again, by scanning the QR code, it's going to take us directly to that place in the model. And then we can update the status to verified, or add comments or screenshots or drawings or photos from our phone to that item. The piece on the left there is about operations. We're not going to go into that too much detail today, but you can freeze the recording on this part if you want to look into that a bit deeper. For the more visual learners amongst you, I've put a visual guide going through step by step what that workflow encapsulates. I may or may not have used a bit of AI generative images to populate this, but let me know if you can spot them. So first off, create custom workflows for equipment tracking. We're going to do that on the workspace just as we ran through, and we're going to build those workflows underneath those different custom statuses. Then from there, we're going to generate the QR codes by selecting all those specific elements, whether we tag them with equipment or maintainable assets. We can do that and create QR codes from that. Once we've done that, we can print QR codes upon procurement with this huge printer that we have to the right. This is exactly how we expect all of you to use Revizto. Next off, we're going to add those QR codes to the equipment, whether that'll be in the factory, wherever it's being manufactured. We're going to add those QR codes to it. And then we're going to update the issue tracker status to manufactured within the Revizto app. This can also be done via the site app. So you could just grab your mobile, scan this, and then update the status. Once it's delivered on site and it's huge, you update a status to delivered. The exact same way, scan it, update to delivered, and then you'll have a whole audit trail of how this has progressed through step by step. Once it's then been installed and shrunk down a little bit, you can update the status once again. To verify, we then use our mobile app to scan the QR code. This will take us directly to that element within the model, and then we can use the AR capabilities that Revizto has to verify the accuracy of the model against the on-site status. We do not recommend using 2 phones and a VR headset to do this. One is definitely enough. Finally, once we're happy with it, or if we're not happy with it, we can update the status to complete, or we can add photos, documents, drawings, anything into the chat log so people can action it. We can add additional assignees if we want people to look over it or make any changes. Finally, we'll touch on the operational side of things, but again, just freeze here if you want to look into kind of the use case outside of handover. Okay, that's the end of the slides. Now we're going to jump into the product itself, run through pretty much everything we went through there, setting it up, what we need to do in terms of the search sets, finding the elements, adding the stamps to those elements, and then also generating those QR codes and the custom workflows as well. So we're going to jump straight into our workspace. As I said, this is where we create our workflows. These are project specific, so you're not making them on the license level, so you have to jump into a project. So we're just going to jump into one here. Then we're going to go into this new tab we have available to us, our issue workflows. In here, if you just started and you have no other ones, you're just going to see this standard workflow. And within that standard workflow, you can't make any changes. That standard workflow will always be on your project, and that will be assigned to all your stamps if you've not assigned it to a different one. We want to create our own one, so we're going to go up to the top here and hit the plus new workflow. And we're going to call this installation progress. And then we could add a description to this, tracking installation, or whatever it may be. We can add a description if you want to add a bit more detail. Once that's done, we're going to open up this new page and we can start looking at how we edit the workflow and how this is going to be assigned to different issue types. An issue type is where this workflow sits. So you could have one workflow assigned to a bunch of different issue types. So for the RFIs or any other type that you may have, the installation, you can apply this workflow for that issue type. We're first going to go in and jump and change the statuses. So if we go here and add the status, we're going to add a new status in here. We're just going to call this equipment. So this is going to be a new status, and it'll give you the option to add new, previous ones or add new ones. So we're just going to hit add. Then we can add a description to it. We're going to do this as a to-do task because it's going to be the start of the creation of the assets. So before it even gets to design and specification freeze, we're just going to set this as equipment so we can identify that equipment. I can then come in down here and select color and change the color of everything. I'm going to use this, so I'm going to pop this as red as that first step. Once I have this, I can pull this to the top. Makes it a little bit easier to read in terms of how the process and that workflow should work by just dragging them around. I can then come into open, hit the delete, pop that down, and then move that new status that it needs to be applied to is going to be equipment. I can then add another one, add another status, go in here and go DNS frozen, new status, add that in, design and specification frozen, pop that down, add that tracking item, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing again, pop that on orange because it's progressed through, and then going to hit add. I'm going to freeze the video here. As I do the rest of these, you can see the typical process that is in place. I'm going to delete this one out, pull this up, delete this one out, move it into DS frozen, and then delete that one out. So I'll be back in a second. So now we've finished all these up. You can see I've ordered these in the order that I expect the workflow to go through. Equipment, it starts as default. It moves through design at DNS frozen, manufactured, delivered, installed, and signed off. Again, we can shift these up and down as we need to. We can then customize these as we need to as well if you want to change the color. What we're then going to do is add a type. So a type is going to be where this workflow is added into. For example, you could use this as a typical workflow and add it to multiple types within here, but we're just going to use this for an installation progress type. So I'm going to add a new one, click on add type, new issue type, pop this down, installation progress. Then I can give it an icon. So I'm going to go for maybe this one, and then I'm going to pop that as a green color. And then I can add a description in there, but we're not going to do that. You have this tick box at the bottom where you could set this issue type as default, and this will supersede all the standard issues workflows that you have. So this is good if you want to just change the typical from in progress, open, closed, and solved. But we're just going to leave that as is for now and hit save. Again, as I said, we could add this to a different one if you wanted to create new ones and just fill out more issue types underneath this. Once we're happy with the workflow, we've set up the issue types. We've also got the statuses in the correct order. We can start looking at how we apply these to the stamps. And within the workspace, we also have this issue settings tab. So we're going to move over from the issue workflows into issue settings. In issue settings, we can start managing our stamp templates, the stamp categories that they sit within, and then we've also got tag information if you want to add additional metadata to your issues. But for this purpose, we're going to go into stamp templates and then add a category. This category we're going to call 14, equipment tracking, and then hit OK. And then we've got a new category within this. So a category is basically a way of organizing those stamps underneath it. If we look at building code here, we've got all these stamps that sit beneath the building code category. If we wanted to, we could add the type to any of the ones we've already created. So if we go in here, we could go down to click installation progress, and that'll update that version of stamp to be on that installation progress status and workflow. If it is blank, what you'll see is that it stays with the standard workflow. So you have to go in and customize these to give them their specific workflow. There is something in the back end that we might have picked up as we were creating the issue workflow where we could automatically set that one as the default. But if you do not do that, the standard workflow is going to be applied here. We're going to go to 14 again, and then we're going to see that we can create our stamp template within this. If we hit the plus button up here or create stamp template here, we can start creating our own stamp template. The abbreviation is basically what you're going to see within the 3D space. So we're going to call this installation tracking progress. And then the title, installation tracking progress. Then we can select a category that it's going to sit within. We could select a different one, but because we've already got this one selected down here and we're creating within it, it's going to default here. If we wanted to create a category, we could do that as well. And that's just going to create a category over here that it's going to sit under. Now we're going to hit OK. And now we've got that stamp available to us. We can then move the stamp if we wanted to, or delete the stamp, or we could also duplicate that stamp. So if we preset this information in here and we've got everything we need, we just need to change maybe the abbreviation or the title, we could just duplicate that out. Anyone that knows what a stamp is just a way of presetting information. So when you apply a stamp, all these presets on the right here are going to come across with that stamp. Things like the type, the color, the deadline, the assignees, that's always going to come across when you create that stamp type in Revizto. And we'll kind of talk about that a bit further in a little bit later. So when we're going here, we start with a lot of blanks and we can fill these in. First off is a type, and that's where you're going to find the installation progress. We can then change the color of this, and we're going to go with light green as well because it's going to match what we've got for our icon. We could change the title and the abbreviation if we wanted to. We can then change the priority. We're going to leave these blank because these are probably going to change as they go. But if we did set this critical, all the stamps we create are going to have that critical priority. We're going to leave them blank because they could change for specific pieces of equipment. We've got deadline in here. So if there's a specific delivery date, we could pop that in. We've got assignee, so if there's a specific package who's delivering this or manufacturing it or popping it on site, we could assign it to them. We've got watchers who are just going to be looking, right? They're going to be notified but don't actually have to do any actions, and then we can do public or private in here as well. And finally, you've got tags. So that's that metadata piece that we talked about previously. Now we have the stamp set up, we can go into the actual Revizto desktop app. We're going to jump in here and go to the desktop app. So this is our demo environment, and this is where those stamps that we created, the workflows we created, have all been added. So the workspace and the desktop app work in conjunction with each other. And if we go into stamps here, we'll scroll down a little bit and we can see equipment tracking, installation tracking progress. We've got a stamp available to us that we created in the workspace, and that's an automatic update. Now we can go in here. We can also customize these if we want to, similar to what we saw in the workspace. We can come in and change the type, or we can go down to our existing one, jump into this, click on this, and then change the type if we want to. Again, if these are blank, it will stick with the standard workflow. Next step, and what we want to do is find a specific piece of equipment. Likely on your own projects, you will have some sort of tag or some sort of data requirement that identifies these, but on this project, we're just going to use something a bit different. We're going to isolate this HVAC model, and we're going to find items with specific pieces of data. So I'm going to select on a piece of equipment, or what I assume is a piece of equipment, select on that. Then I'm going to see the properties of that. I'm going to close down this object tree, and I'm going to see the properties, and I'm going to use something that I can create a search set from. So your search sets are up here, find objects and search sets. So find objects is where you're building out these search sets. We're just going to clean that out. And then on the bottom, you've got where these are actually saved, so we can create folders, import and export and share these from here. But we're going to build one of these out so we can find all this equipment in the future. So what I'm going to use in this project, typically what we found is that category is used most frequently, but I'm just going to use the name and make a search set from it. And instead of adding search set current property condition in here, what I can do is just pull this directly from our properties, add to current search set, and what that's going to do is build that out within there. And anytime I click find all, it's going to find all those HRU units. Once I have those, I can save that search set out. So I can save as a new search set and call this HRUs. Don't need to pop it in a folder, and then it's down here. So now whenever we go home, wait for a second for that to load up. And then I select HRUs again and isolate. You can see only the HRUs selected, and every time we can come back to it. As I said, we could share this with a wider project, or you could just keep it to yourself. Once we have that selected, we'll see on the left, we've got the favorited properties. We can customize these as we like. And I only bring that up because it pulls up what's in that tooltip that comes when you highlight an element. But also when we go into selection inspector, you'll see those values, those properties at the top there, and also how they've been populated from all those items that we've selected. Once we have all those, we can click on all the items just with this tick box at the top, or we can go through them individually and select, but we're just going to click on them all. And then we have the option to create multiple stamps or create stamp. Because we have multiple selected, we want to create multiple stamps. And if we go in here, it's going to pull up this list of all the existing stamps, and they're going to be broken down into category and then into the stamp themselves. So we're going to scroll all the way down to the bottom to the new one we created, and we're just going to click on that. Then it's going to come up with a confirmation that we want to apply 37 stamps because we have 37 items selected. We're going to create stamps. And once we've done waiting a few seconds, it's going to create those stamps for all those elements. Within the issue tracker then, what we could do is filter these out. If we go into the filter, and we could create a custom filter within here, we're going to go down, clear this one anyway, and we're going to go into the stamp by stamp. Then we're going to search for installation, filter that out, and then we've only got those issues that are our equipment tracking. We can then save that filter as equipment tracking, installation tracking, and hit create. And now within our presets, we go down here, we search for this one, installation track at the bottom. If we jump into another one, we can just jump back into that straight away. And just like before, we can share that with the wider team if we want to, or keep it to ourselves. So once we have those items in, and kind of going back to our presentation that I created previously, what you can do is then track this as we go through. So even if you weren't to use the QR codes, we can update the status of this from one to another. So equipment, DNS, manufactured, and it can follow that full journey. What you could do off the back of this is also add a photo. So as it's progressing through, it's just another way to sign off and confirm it's moved from one step to another. You could have a photo of that piece of equipment. Maybe it's when it's actually installed or when it's been delivered on site. So you have this full audit trail. With each of these issues that we create, we have this chat log in with that issue. And this chat log is an audit trail that stays with that issue all the way through. You cannot delete anything in here. You cannot, well, as soon as you make a comment, it cannot be removed. But another thing which we touched on is then adding the QR code. So with these issues, I can go in here, generate QR codes. Because I've got that filter already created, I can select on these items and it's going to select every one of those ITPs, installation track in progress stamps that we have and issues we have, and then we can generate them for those. We can then choose whether we want a sticker or an A4. Save QR codes to PDF, we'll do that. We want it to be stickers because we actually want to apply these. I'm going to then save this out as stickers, that's fine, and then just hit save. And it's going to generate those QR codes. So now we have those QR codes, and if I go into my files where these are located, just a second while that loads up. You can see we now have a PDF of those QR codes that can be printed off and applied to those pieces of equipment. So I have spent a little bit of time in the back end instead of you watching me do a slightly tedious task of changing all the statuses, drawing from design DNS all the way through manufactured, just to give us a bit of variety. And I've done that just for the purpose of showing you how we report off the back of this. I will do a quick video at the end of this to show how we can use the QR codes in real life and scan those and actually get to those pieces of equipment, as I demonstrated or talked about multiple times during this webinar. But for the time being, we're just going to run through the reporting off the back of this. So I can come up here, these are all our issues, and I can just click on the reporting button up here, which is this little envelope. This envelope is going to take us into the workspace, and then we can start, it'll jump us straight into reports. Reports are a bit different to dashboards. Reports are the emails that get sent out. They're a bit of a tick box to say these are all the issues that are coming through for that specific person or that specific company, and you can be very granular in terms of who you send them out to and the frequency as well. So something to look into, but nothing for this session. We're just going to want to look at the dashboards. So if we go into dashboards here, this is one that I've already pre-populated. Again, not going to go into a huge amount of detail in terms of setting these up. I will show you how they work very briefly again for another session, but we can go in here, hit new dashboard, and you can just make a dashboard here, add filters, and create that one. But let's look at one that I've already created, this installation track in progress. So in this dashboard, I've basically gone in here and hit a new chart. And in the chart, we can really go into detail about how we set these up, who the assignees are, and what data this is. This isn't a hugely technical charts to create, to be honest with you. They're very simple. You'll see here that these values are very easy to add in, and you can get good results off the back of it. So once you go through here, you set these up, you can get charts similar to this. So this is a status chart. So we're seeing how those statuses have changed from one to another across a period of time. I will update this and do a quick video on the end of this to show you. I'll update these over the weekend, and you'll see how these have progressed from one to another and how it's visualized. Below that, we've also got an installation tracking status, and that's for the specific company that I'm assigned to because all these issues are assigned to me. But you can see the current status of all those specific pieces of equipment. You can be more granular in this if you want to be. You could possibly make different stamps for different pieces of equipment for the different companies as well, and you can really go into detail how you dashboard this out. What's great about these dashboards as well is if you click on one of these, so let's say we've got these 29 pieces of equipment that are just frozen for some reason and we want to know what's wrong with them or what's happening, we can click on this, and this is going to go into the issue tracker. And in that issue tracker, it's going to create a filter that is already set for the ones you just clicked on. So these are all the pieces of equipment that are just sitting on that default stage, which is equipment, and we can filter them through there. So if we go back now, just to give you another example, go into station tracking, go down to this, and let's see which one is DNS frozen. It's going to filter out those 4 issues. So this is a good hub for you to be able to access your information from that top level. That is mostly going to be the end of my webinar. I will include a little video on the end for a recording of how the site app works. I hope this was extremely useful. Please get in contact me if you want to delve into this a little bit deeper. Very happy to hear from you, and these processes and tools are available to you, but we often learn a lot from our customers just as much as we learn from each other. Thank you very much. Okay, I'm back. So this is me recording my phone and using a QR code that we generated during my webinar. So I can click on this, scan the QR code. You can see a little pop-up comes up. This is Android. If I click on that one, it's going to load me straight into Revizto, and that's coming straight from my camera as well. You don't have to go into the Revizto app. You just scan it, and it knows it's a Revizto QR code. It takes us straight to that issue, and then we can start doing stuff within the mobile app. So in here, we can also see the info. So imagine you've just done this on site, or when a piece of equipment has been delivered, or it's been installed, or is finished in manufacturing. We could go in here and update the status to manufactured, follow that through to delivered, follow that through to installed, follow that through to signed off. And if we wanted to see an audit trail of that, I could just hit this one. We can see the chat, and we can see the log of this issue, and you can see the status at the bottom there, how it's gone through all the way through design, then specification frozen, all the way through to installed. What I could also do is take a picture, do this one, upload that. What that's going to do is upload the image. I could then do a capture on this, incorrect, if this was the actual piece of equipment. Hit the tick. Add that in, hit done. Once that's done, we can add that comment, review, location, in model, hit OK, then we'll just hit tick. And then anyone that comes into that issue now, click on that, and they can see any comments that I've ever had. You can also add documents to this. So if you had a specific form for snagging, you could add that document in there. Once you've completed it on your phone or on your desktop, you could add that in and see if there's any issues. Additionally, we can go to 3D. We can load these models up. Just give it a second. And that's going to take us to the 3D view. Zoom in and out with the controls of the site app. We can then go into 2D as well, or we can align 2D and 3D together. So if we can go to the site plan, for example, let's click on that one. You can see where we are orientated in the 2D map. If we went to 2D specifically, you can also see all those other stamps associated to it. So if we filter that down to those issues, that the stamps that we created for the installation tracking, you'll only be able to see those on the 2D view. Another thing you can do, which we won't go into too much here, if we jump back to 3D, we've got the walk system, which we can walk around with. not a good idea to do this where there's no floor, as you will drop down, but we can navigate around through this and you could do your snagging through there. Another item you could do is AR, which we won't demonstrate during this presentation just because I'm not on site at the moment. I'm just doing this at home from my office. But you could calibrate this to a specific location, and then you could see how that aligns the model to the actual site conditions. And that's all there is to show in terms of the site app and how you can integrate this into the system. There's obviously more things you can do with the site app, but there will be another webinar running through the functions and features within the site app. Thank you very much.